Hello, everybody, and welcome to a question and answer session with arguably the most famous coach in the world out there, a guy whose books I grew up reading. It's Mark Dvoretsky here with us in the studio. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
So, Mark, we have a lot of questions from the users.
Right, I wrote those questions, and I should add that majority of questions are very good and interesting. I like thank you for such questions. But only problem is that to answer for many questions, I need time. It cannot be answered by a couple of words. Some questions actually are just topics for discussions, for interesting discussions. So it's clear that I can answer only a few questions now. So by this reason, maybe I will say you some general word which maybe can be useful, can be partially the answers for several questions simultaneously. So first, some questions which perhaps I will not answer. For example, there are some questions about opinion. Ask my recommendation about opinion. I am not opinion specialist at all, so no sense. Better to ask somebody who knows this matter better than me. Same was about some questions about, for example, how is it possible for, say, 1 year of playing in tournaments to reach some level, or how quickly to increase your level and so on. I usually didn't solve problems like this. And so, again, have no enough experience. I can advise something, but I'm not sure that it's most interesting thing which I can say. So better to skip questions like this. Another important thing is that there are some general principle of works, and for effectiveness of your work, you should follow such principles. From other hand, you can implement this principle by many different ways. There is no one correct way which you should follow. It's some ways has equal value, or it sometimes depends on your personality, your level of playing, your qualities and advantages and disadvantages, and so on, your taste. So in many questions you ask what is correct, this or that. Very often I can say that you can follow any procedure, and all of them make sense. Maybe I will even spend some time tell you one story which I like, which can maybe explain this. In the past, somewhere in 20th, 30th years of last century, in Soviet Union, it was some very good pedagogue, Makarenko. He taught some kids, some difficult kids, even criminals, and very successfully. Then he wrote very good, interesting books about his work. Well, there is ideology inside those books, but you can skip it, and without this ideology, it's very interesting. So he became very famous in the country. And after that, naturally, many people ask him questions, a lot of questions. I know how he answered for some questions. For example, some guy wrote him, okay, my son did so and so, some bad things. How you would react in this situation? What I should do in such situation? Okay. He answered, well, what I can say, I don't know what the weather was in this moment. You see, so right?
It depends.
Yeah, it depends on many circumstances. It's very difficult to give good advices if you don't know circumstances, personality, and so on. So, and one more thing that. Well, I already practically answered to some question completely or partially in the video which we already made. Some question about training of calculation, about improvement of technique, and so on. So maybe no sense to repeat it here. No. You can
They're not out yet, but we've recorded 2 video series with Mark Dvoretsky, one on endgame strategy, one on calculation. So those will be published in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully they will answer some of your questions.
Yeah. Well, there are some questions which in various form I can read several times. Now, for example, is it makes sense to read books, follow games in blindfold mode? Well, I can say that logically it should be useful, develop your skill to see positions. But I never use this way of training intentionally, so it wasn't some form of training. I know that some my colleague, for example, very respectable colleague, Grandmaster Zaitsev, he very likes this form of training and recommend to everybody. He plays games blindfold, I recommend to read books blindfold. So perhaps it makes sense, but as I am not specialist, I will not recommend it. Perhaps it makes sense, you can try it. How to read books, my books, how to study or some other books. No, well, at the board or in computer, it's not so important. You can choose various options. But what I can say, maybe what advice maybe will be useful for you, it's that, well, you have no chance to read everything, it's clear. So you should select first, you should select the best books. No, I cannot give you a list because it's too long time, and it also depends on your level of. Also, I know better Russian language literature versus English language. So I gave some advices about some good books in my lecture, which was in video. But so maybe good advice is to find best author which you like more, and read mainly those authors who writes really interesting way.
So and which authors do you like?
Several. I mentioned some of them. I very like a couple of books of Jonathan Rose, and I like John Nunn. Ogert writes a good books. Some old books
Boretsky,
are great.
Yusupov, I heard are okay.
Well, I hope that my books are good. At least all my books, without any exceptions, became bestsellers and had many editions. So I hope that it will be useful. So, but even in such books, you cannot read everything. It's too much time. So what I recommend you, if you before to read the game, which you would like to study, briefly follow this game blindfold. Diagrams, commands, and so on. Very briefly. You will see, does this book and this game and those commands contain something really important and interesting for you. If not, okay, ignore it, switch to another game. If yes, okay, in this case, maybe you can study it more deeply and so on.
Set up a chessboard.
Yeah. So don't try to take everything. Yeah. Try to select the best. Yeah, it's this way. Another typical question was about training with solving exercises. In one letter, I read that some grandmaster recommended 90% of time spent for solving exercises. Okay, majority of players use 90% for studying opening. It's as stupid like solve exercise 90%. Actually, the work is more effective if you use various form of work. What I can say about solving exercise is extremely important part of work. It's certainly true. Your studying of chess should be active. It's certainly true. But solving exercise is not the aim. It's just tool which help you to understand material better. So there is no sense, perhaps 90% to solve exercises from some book. You decide what you would like to improve in your play, or you study some kind of positions and so on. Okay, then do it actively. Solve some exercises on this topic, and try to solve exercises during studying process. In my books, for example, I use question mark under the diagram for position which can be used like exercises. Another thing, another kind of question was about the same problem, that should you think a lot about position deeply and so on. Well, various situations exist. Sometimes it makes sense even try to intuitively to guess what is correct, and then you can check with the answer. With the text, how you get, how correct was your guess. Sometimes you see that the problem is accurate calculation offline, so you should try to do it in this case. So you should see, you should decide how to approach to this. It's various approach here are effective. Sometimes you just don't know what to do. You don't see any reasonable solution. Okay, remember some advices which you will get from our discussion about calculation. Move candidates. Ask yourself what else, what I could miss. So sometimes try this approach. It will help you sometimes to find new ideas. So use technique which we discuss in this video, or which you will read in some books about, and so on. So it's some general advices on topics which I found. I perhaps can say something else, but maybe now it makes sense to switch.
No, let's get to some questions. I think you've answered a lot of them already, but let's see. You can, of course, decide what you want to answer. You've already mentioned openings are not really your thing, so we're gonna pass on the chess to win question. Sorry about that. By the way, knight f6, knight c3 should be included. Akshat02 is asking, what is the best way to get informed, tactically alert, and get focused right before an important event?
Well, it's a really good problem for many chess players. Basically, you shouldn't make before that. I divide my training work for two parts. One of them is just for general improvement. In this case, I don't worry about tournament, which I should play about my shape, my form. I can make some difficult work with my students. Before tournament, of course, we avoid difficult work. Very a good thing is to solve some tactical exercises. But most important thing to be in very good physical form, so to make some sport. And sport should be interesting. You should be in good mood. It should be entertaining.
I read you recommend team sports. Yeah, you don't like
yes, play games and so on. Actually, you can read about it a little bit more in the first issue, first volume of my book for friends and colleagues. I a little bit discuss this problem about form.
Okay, let's get to the next question. I believe this one you just answered, how to read a book best. In general, you recommend setting up a board if it's interesting.
Yeah.
Xenon 1840 is asking, my main problem is that I see so many possibilities in every chess game and there is too much to explore in a single game.
Yeah, I should say that, for example, great Paul Keres had the same, I don't know, advantage or disadvantage, but same, it was his problem. He saw many move candidates always and considered it even more than necessary. Not easy to say what you can do. You can try to develop your intuition and try to see position and guess which line you should calculate, which you can skip and so on. Maybe you need to try to improve your positional understanding, because it also can help you to limit your calculation. But what various way can be used. You try to solve approach, but what most important thing is that you will not change your algorithm effectively if you will try to do it during the tournament game, because it will, if you will try to change something, you will act according to another algorithm which you don't know, you have no experience, so it will be difficult, you will not be successful. So sometimes your algorithm of making decision is not effective and you should correct it, but in principle you should try to correct it during the training. So you should find the training ways which correct it, and find kind of exercises to think in the direction how to correct, try to correct it somehow. But not only then you can try it in tournament, but first in training.
Got it. Junior Chess Team is saying, while trying to improve the endgame technique, one has to read endgame books. The question is if it's better to sit for 30 minutes for a lot more trying to figure out the result and main lines of the endings, or just read the answer along with the explanations. Understand it and move on.
Yeah, again, you should combine both approach. Sometimes you don't need to sit 30 minutes, you need just try to guess the answer. But principle that you should try to read books as actively as possible. In my books you can find this help with question marks under the diagram, which you can try to solve. With other books it's more difficult because you don't know when you should stop for some minutes. And not necessary to think 30 minutes, so as I already explained, sometimes you can try to find intuitive solution, sometimes you can really try to calculate, sometimes you can read and then solve some exercises on this topic. So you can, there is no absolutely clear correct procedure. You can try various things.
SD Bates is saying, hi Mark Dvoretsky, you have worked with many of the chess top players such as Kasparov, Anand, Topalov, to name a few. You work with Kasparov?
A little bit. The question is how we worked. Absolutely different things. For example, with Kasparov, I helped Botvinnik in his chess school. Botvinnik asked me to help Kasparov to become better in endgame and technique and so on. I gave him big homework, and he did it and demonstrated me result in the next session. It was very good, very successful work, and the next tournament he played very well technically. So, he's a genius player, of course. For him, it was enough to make some kind of work. So it's one kind of work. Topalov came to me in Moscow. We have very hard training session. We work 5 hours, discuss various topics, and then at the evening he solved difficult exercises on those topics and so on. And then again, it was a very extremely successful session. After that, during the year he added 80 points of rating.
What was the topic? Endgames as well.
Endgame and technique. And at the beginning, I saw that his calculation also not good. So 2 days I spent for improvement of calculation because I saw that he cannot solve my exercises. But then at the end he solved practically everything. So he saw himself how it improved. But with Anand, for example, we had 6 days of training before his match against Kasparov, and it wasn't effective. I had some time rare, but I had session which wasn't too effective with Nona Gaprindashvili as well before he match for World Championship. Because some recommendation which I gave them, they didn't want to follow. So we didn't work in the most effective way, so result wasn't so great. Anand is a nice person and had a good personal contact, but our work wasn't effective. So, but it's a random session. With my regular student, I worked by different way. For trainer, it's very important not to work in standard way. Always you should guess what is the most effective.
Different.
Yeah.
Spatre is asking, is playing blindfold a good way? You've touched on this.
Yeah, we already spoke about it.
Silhouettes is saying, what did you do personally to get focused and in the right mental state before a tournament and or before a game?
What did I do? Well, I did absolutely different things because people's differ, Yeah, for some of them I should help them to become more confident. For other, opposite is correct, more critical, and absolutely different situation.
No, but he's asking you yourself when you played. What did you do?
It's not instructive because I wasn't successful with it. Unfortunately, some problems which I was able to solve with my students, before it I couldn't solve for myself. But at least I understood how important such problems and what the problems and so on. Unfortunately, like a sportsman, I was quite weak. It was the reason why I didn't achieve more in chess.
Okay, but you stopped playing. When did you stop playing? Very early, no?
Yeah, I played actively a few years. I very quickly switched to training work. Even when I play my best tournament, at this moment I already started to seriously to teach, and then very soon switched to training. So it was a few years, but still I knew perfectly my personal drawbacks, personal weaknesses, and I understood that with such weaknesses I cannot be first in the world or even 10th in the worst. I had a good position, maybe 20s, 30s, 35.
Yeah, that's why I read.
Yeah, it's not so bad, but I understood that I cannot be first. From other hand, I immediately saw that in training work, in training work I could be more successful than the other trainers. So, and there is no very famous sentence of Julius Caesar, that better to be first in village than second in Roma. Yeah.
Good point. I'm still the #1 in Hamburg, last time I checked. I think, yeah, you've talked. What are your favorite chess books? You've mentioned some authors.
Yes,
do you have any personal favorites that
difficult to say. Different time, different favorites. Yeah.
Then we have Mr. Spills. Hello, I've been stuck at around 2200 ELO for a long time. I learned chess in kind of an old-fashioned way. I learned systems and structures, tried to play thematic moves while following general principles. But I would like to adapt a more concrete approach. What steps would you recommend?
Very good question, by the way. But for the answer to this question, I need time. I can briefly formulate what I already told you during our video lessons. That there is one thing, it's studying chess studying chess rules, studying chess theory, and so on. Another, it's to improve your skills. If you just study chess ideas by books, for example, even with good books, it's not enough to be able to use it. There is distance between knowledges and skills. And studying of any serious problem, like technique, like calculation, like defense, and many others, it's not clear chess process, it's also psychological process. You should work out some approach to it, some way of thinking and so on. So you accurately formulate that you studied systems, structure, so books knowledges, maybe even for knowledges from very good books, but it's only part of work. For effectiveness of work, you should develop skills. So, but how to do
So
it?
in his case, it would mean solving more exercises for him.
More exercises, to think about prophylactic side of it. So in some books, there are many books which very well explain clear chess ideas. But I believe that most interesting and most useful annotation comments which explain how chess player will find it, how he should think to find it, what typical mistake of thinking, and so on. But I am trying to do it in all my books always. So, but maybe in some video lectures you will see how we trying to do it. So it's maybe it's main explanation. It's interesting problem for thinking for everybody. It's a really very good question. Yeah.
And we have like 15 questions from this guy, but I think he later decided on one, so we're gonna get to that. Here we are. What do you think of Putin's move to open a chess section in the Serious Educational Center in Sochi? Have you been to that center?
Yes, recently I visited it. Okay, no, I will not say about Putin. I don't think that Frau Merkel, for example, did something about football team of Germany or something like that. Yeah, so it's the same. So chess, our chess leadership decided to open this chess section in this educative center, and it's a very good idea. Perhaps they need to get permission for it from somebody, some authorities. But initiative certainly was from chess. Yeah, and it's really very good idea because it enables kids who study there to make professional work regularly. They will have maybe 8 sessions in the year, and each session will be 20 or 24 days, something like this. Very smart trainers will teach them, and so on. We had something in Soviet Union and past, for example, Moscow, it was sport internat, and even without good trainers, many good players came. Or in Ukraine, Kramatorsk, it was a school which worked several years. Many top players came from the school. No, we had the same effect in China. They also studied professionally and prepared many good players. So I hope that with this center Sirius, it will be the same effect after a few years of work, as they will help many talented kids become strong players.
How does it work? The kids go there to live, or it's a couple sessions?
It's sessions, but many sessions during the year. The participants of the session, not absolutely the same kids, but main part of them will be the same, so they will get regular education. They simultaneously will study in the school. By the way, in the center, chess is only part of the center. There are a lot of young scientists, mathematicians, and so on, some painters, and so on. So it's a good center for kids, for development of their skill. It's a very nice idea and very good. And I hope that it will be very good implementation of this idea and good results.
German Chess Federation, we need more centers. Minor Bison, I think we have to refer him to the series which we just recorded. He's asking, what is your preferred method of improving calculation ability? We just did a whole series on that thing.
Yeah, perhaps, yeah.
So I'll just tease it. It's about 3 topics mainly. Paying attention to your opponent's resources, finding the right candidate moves, and prophylactic thinking.
Yes. From the hand, you can find additional information. If you will see this video, I recommended some books where you can read more on this topic and get many exercises on those topics and so on.
Yeah, also in the series, there's going to be lots of exercises, so you're going to have to wait for that. Sorry, Minor Bison. JLR Hay says, Okay, this is a typical question. Hi Mark, according to your experience, what would be your advice to a 2150 player who would like to get to FIDE Master, that's 2300, in 1 year? Thanks a lot for your reply and for being who you are.
I will answer like Makarenko. I don't know what's size of your apartment where you live and what your salary and what's your main occupation and so on. So many factors that impossible to give advice without concrete knowledge.
Ted Lawyer is saying, hi Mark, I enjoyed several of your books, including your latest book that is a memoir of your coaching experiences. You have coached talented male and female chess players. Is there a difference in your approach to men versus women players, discounting for chess strength?
You know, I practically didn't make difference with my chess material. Only difference is the way of contact with men or women, but it's absolutely natural. But so it's not chess difference.
Tell me about it. This guy is not a premium member and is also an opening question, so we're gonna skip that. Leclou is saying, hi Mark, please give us one psychological tip while a chess game. For example, Niklas one time said when it was good time to offer a draw. Thanks.
I don't know which advice can be useful. I usually avoid such questions because I don't know what is more important, what is less important. There are many interesting rules. In my books you can find many recommendations.
Astrobal, hi Mark, which way do you think is better to improve chess evaluation? Not sure I get the question, but maybe.
It's not an obvious question. Perhaps the best is to read very good books with a good explanation of chess ideas. And of course try to solve such exercises, such problems yourself. So the good explanations, good comments, it's maybe most reasonable source of self-improvement in such areas.
Lucine's Parachute saying, hello Mark, in my games I often spend too much time to get to the bottom of a position. We've talked about this already, but then later in the analysis I found out that actually nothing crucial was to be found there and I should just have played a sensible move and saved my time. I guess that means I'm not good at identifying critical positions and therefore I'm putting too much effort into non-critical ones. Do you have a suggestion how to get better at this?
Well, it's maybe even not the problem of critical position, problem of way of your approach, way of your thinking. So, logically you can trust more to your intuition. So, how to do it? I mentioned maybe I can recommend you to read the chapter about development of chess intuition in 5th book of Seria, which was written with Yusupov and me, School of Future Champions. Maybe some ideas which help you to limit your calculation. But actually, again, I already told about such problems. You should try somehow to arrange your mind better during training, not during the game, but during training first. And then if in some moment you will feel that you are successful, it will be easier to do. It will influence for your game.
All right. Okay, Tommy, we have to skip. Superfishy24 says, hi Mark, you are famed for training young players like Artur Yusupov and Alexei Dreyev, but with the advent of the computer, how would you change your training methods?
Of course something changed from those times, but main principles perhaps the same. Computer is a very useful tool, which I of course use for preparation of my materials, for using some new training forms. I even worked out computer program for training, which and so on. But the basic principle, basic approach, it is the same. Computer is just tool. It's not changed too much. It's very good for keeping material, for example, educative material and so on. So it's not changed dramatically. Of course, we use changes.
Does it make life easier for you when you prepare your exercises? It's maybe easier to check solutions and so on?
Sure, yes, of course. it's became much easier. From other hand, there is danger that I perhaps already mentioned about that players always has tendency to see the answer in computer because it's quickly, solidly. So they don't have enough training of their brain themselves. So a trainer should see this danger and somehow to overcome it. How? It's of course an interesting problem. How
Not
to avoid
easy.
this danger? Not easy, of course. Yeah.
Coconut is asking, hi Mark, many players began playing chess with a sharp tactical style to become more and more positional with time. Fischer, Keres, Carlsen, Anand and so on. Do you think it's due to age and tactical alertness decreasing with it? Or is positional chess the ultimate stage of evolution for a player?
Also interesting question. I believe that explanation is not nature of the chess game, or even not because they became not so good tacticians. Mainly it's just human features. When plays young, he wants to be very successful, he has a lot of energy and so on. He is ready to fight, he is ready to risk. Older people don't want to risk too much, don't have enough energy for big efforts, so they prefer to act in safe mode. There are exceptions like Korchnoi, for example. He played a very sharp games even when he was very old. But it's so you see, it's he didn't change his style. Maybe even started play even more aggressively. So it's mainly it's a matter of human being. We are human being, and it's our changes, not chess changes. It's human changes. Yeah.
Ryan Meneses is saying, is it a reasonable expectation to reach 2000 ELO just by fighting in local weekend tournaments twice a month without any formal coaching training?
Okay, so it's again the question of the nature where I cannot give you competent question because I didn't try it myself, didn't try it with my students. So okay, I can say any opinion, but you don't need to trust my opinion. It's of course it's not based on experience, on real knowledge. So yeah.
Yeah, from what I see, you have to put in some work. If you just play and play and play, I see a lot of people playing every day on the internet, never improving anything.
Yes,
so,
for improvement, of course, you should combine playing and studying. In general, it's good. But maybe you can reach your goal even without studying, who knows. But I have no experience with it. We only study with my students.
Grandmaster Passion, I believe that is, who's that? Max Illingworth from Australia is saying, is there one best way to work through your books, or is the order one reads the different books not so important? And would it be fair to say that the greatest learning comes from solving the exercise in the books? We've talked about the second, but the first one, is there an order, or it doesn't matter?
Perhaps it doesn't matter. You can choose the problem which you should solve first. And so on. Maybe the order is matter when you just don't know some ideas of work on chess. For example, Yusupov in my first book in series School of Future Champions, it devoted how to study chess, how to work on own games. So if you didn't read enough on about such problem, maybe it makes sense to start from such book. But basically, you can choose the book which cover problems, topics which are most interesting to you right now, and even you can choose some chapters of such books, not all books, so not necessary to read everything.
Okay, this is more of a general question again. Prutis Keen. Hello Mark, if you could magically force your students to change one thing about how they train, what would it be?
For one person, for one student, one thing, for another student, another. Some of them doesn't work hard, some of them opposite work hard but not effectively. So various situations, it's impossible to give certain advice.
And he's also wondering if you offer private tuition for amateurs.
Now I reduced my training practice for some reason, so no.
You've talked about this already, I believe, that yeah, this guy was told to spend 90% of his time on chess problems. The answer is it depends, as usually. It should be more balanced.
And again, not 90% on chess problems, but I would formulate another thing by another way. Solving of problems should be part of your training always. When you solve any problem, when you study any chess topic, but it's not aim to work solve and solve and solve and so on.
Our friend Pramot always has very interesting questions. Hello, Mark and Jan. Is there any book or series which suggests where to place our rooks?
No, it's a very specific question, so you can find some examples on it. For example, Yusupov demonstrate you in his lecture his brilliant book against Van der Wiel. I extremely like it and explain how he choose it. But there is no direct rule. So in any concrete case, you should solve this problem by this or that way. So no sense. Even if I don't know, maybe somebody wrote book about it, but it's not so interesting. It's just collection of specific cases.
No, I remember in the series I did with Artur, there were like 5 exercises where it was rook fd1 or rook 81, but it always depends. Like,
of course,
unfortunately. 39 clues. Okay, it's sort of a question we've tackled already, I believe. Best way to improve practical strength. Fabi with the long question. He read Mr. Gelfand's book, Positional Decision-Making in Chess. I haven't read it yet. I heard it's very good.
Unfortunately not, but I'm sure that it's very good. Gelfand is very serious and very professional also. Certainly it should be good.
He was quite surprised about Gelfand's remarks on how little he sometimes actually calculates in order to choose the move to play, often relying mostly on intuition. Although I guess that's quite a lot of calculation that goes on in top players' head unconsciously. He has recently tried to follow Gelfand's lead to spend less time calculating and trust his intuition a bit more. The question would be, how can a player identify a reasonable ratio of calculation versus intuition?
Again, very good question, very good question. By the way, he quoted what Gelfand wrote about it, but many years ago, Grandmaster Reti, when he was asked how many moves he calculate, no one, he told. Yeah. Of course, it's a little bit paradoxical, but about how to guess, should you calculate or should you play by intuitively, or should you play in prophylactic mode or attacking mode and so on. Unfortunately, there is no accurate answer. You can, if you train in this area, if you solve some exercises, see some examples, good example on this topic, you just will develop feeling. You will have more chances to guess correctly during in your practical games how to approach trust calculation or rotation, but there is no direct rule. Or with any concrete example, I can formulate why here you should do this but not that. But it's difficult to implement the next example. So it's practical training, practical studying of such situation will help you to become better. But don't try to find a very precise rule. If somebody will formulate such a rule, it will, believe me, it will not help. It's almost practically will not help you.
I normally try to calculate for like 10 minutes and then I decide, okay, I'm not smart enough to calculate and I make some decision intuitively, but that's probably not
By the way, you know, some of my last books devoted to training with some exercises. Books, remember about opponent, for example. Just within a few days will be published another my book of same nature about searching of maneuver, right position for the pieces. And when you will try to solve exercises and we will see solutions. In solutions, in many examples, I try to explain how to approach to that, how you could find it, what you should see during the game, and so on. So maybe such comments in the I wasn't satisfied by just the answer for exercises, some moves which are correct and some sample lines. I try to demonstrate how we think in such situations. So maybe a study of such such books, such examples can help you also to develop the skill.
Spidey is asking, Dear Mr. Dvoretsky, how should one analyze his own games? Thank you.
Well, we need time to answer it, so I will recommend you to read the book which I already mentioned, Yusupov and my book, first in series, School of Future Champions. And Yusupov, for example, gave lecture, wrote chapter about exactly this topic, how to analyze own games. And I also wrote about it something in this book. Well, of course, it was everything was written when computers didn't exist or was very weak. So now we need to input some changes to those recommendations. But basically, many advices was given. So I just recommend you to study this.
You consider it important to analyze his own games?
Of course, it's very. Yusupov believes that it's extremely important, and I agree with him.
Shieldfire. Dear Mr. Dvoretsky, what is your recommendation to minimize the min-max variation in one's games? Not sure what he means. For example, I've recently played even games with 2200 till 2300 players and lost against 1800 players. This is so very frustrating.
It's clear psychological problem, of course. Problem of self-confidence, maybe, or against weaker players and so on. So it's possible to work concretely with a person. Difficult to give recommendation without if I don't know him personally.
Right. TextMax, we've had this question already. What is the best way to master calculation? Check out the series that's going to come out. Dr. Boki, he's a fan of your work, has all of your books, although some of them seem to be difficult. How do you recommend working with the books without a coach?
Perhaps we already spoke about it. Don't need to read them one after another. You can choose best topics, most interesting topics for you. You can try to solve some exercises inside, but not necessary to solve accurately. Some of them you can guess what answer should be and then check, compare with my text and so on. So we already spoke about it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Another question on how to improve. Andrea78 started around 30 but has serious aims to improve. Which should be the training priorities? Kind of, yeah.
Perhaps about the same like for any chess player. If chess player would like to become better, so to read good books, to train calculations and making decisions, it's more widely. Well, in each age there are some specific features, but the basic approach is the same. So we cannot give specific advices.
Yeah. Another question we've already more or less touched on. Elgato Rabioso is a 2100 FIDE player, 15 years old. What do you recommend to prepare before a tournament? He does tactical problems and works on his repertoire.
Very reasonable. Yeah. That's a good approach. Just watch. Remember about sport, about good mood, fighting spirit, and so on. But basically, it's correct approach. Very well.
Good. And yeah, now we get some more of these general improving questions. What are the main steps for FIDE master to become international master?
It's the same like if you would like to become stronger player when you're weaker player right now. So read good books, solve exercise and so on. It's same in any level. No, well, I don't speak about beginners, of course. It's another kind of work. I work with students who already achieve some level, and but then it's general approach is the same, so nothing specific to it.
Let's see what Gryffindor has to say. I've always thought that for playing good chess, it is not necessary to deeply study opening theory, in any case until 2200 till 2300. But in the era of engines and easy access to database, he wonders if it's so true. Can you respond to 3 variations of this issue? Concerning young and old player, concerning player style. So the basic question is it important to study opening theory and starting at what strength?
Okay, opening theory is studying of opening theory is only part of your work on improvement of chess. Well, so it's first. It's not the main part. It's just part. Well, importance of opening theory becomes higher and higher in your way to strong playing. For grandmasters, for example, importance higher than for players with average rating, and for weaker players even less important, because they played many mistakes afterwards, so better to improve general play. But even for grandmasters, it should be only part of their work. This work takes more time than for average player, for example, average rating players, but still it should be just part of work. But how to distribute your time, it's already depends on it's a personal question. Yeah.
Diego's. Yeah, I think we've had many of these questions. Which is the best way to improve for a player who is 1900 ELO?
About the same, like 2100 and so on. A little bit more difficult books, maybe exercises, but basic approach is the same.
Kalashnikov, dear Mr. Dvoretsky, how would you motivate a student if his tournament start is below expectations? Go for the no chess only dinner method, like Tukmakov mentions in one of his books.
I don't remember what it means.
I think it probably means that, yeah, let's just go for dinner and not talk about any chess to clear head, I'm guessing. To forget the bad results or prepare in a special way to get back on track. So how to deal with bad results in a tournament?
Difficult to say. So different people and so different situation. I choose various approach. Sometimes it's effective, sometimes not. But I cannot give general advice. Again, it's what I told at the beginning. People are different, so the situation are different. So general advice don't exist.
It's always a problem. If you ask any expert on anything, you will very often get "it depends" as an answer.
Sure, and it's okay, because some experts will give you exact advice. You will follow it, but maybe it will absolutely not good for you. It will work for some other. For example, for this expert, many people's advice what was successful for themselves. It's absolutely natural way, but it doesn't mean that it will be good for other people's.
Dear Mr. Dvoretsky, what is the difference between Arthur and Jan?
First name start from A, second from J.
That is an excellent point. I'm also much younger and less bearded, and a weaker chess player.
Yes.
Danger Mao 5 is saying, Mr. Dvoretsky, thanks for collaborating with Chess24. He's looking forward to the series. He's heard some famous players, Peter Svidler and Alexander Belyavsky, talking about playing and solving studies blindfold. I've recently started playing blindfold 5-minute chess online myself. You've talked about this before.
Yeah, and I don't think that it makes sense to play blind for 5 minutes. Either you can play for 5 minutes games for joy. You can play blindfold game for training, but combine the different things. So no sense. Either play blindfold or play blitz.
Mr. Dvoretsky, what do you think of the East Indian for black? I have no idea what that is.
Yes, me too.
DBs, that's our Spanish friend David Martinez. When you train frequently with players at a GM level, do you think you need to focus on points like strengths or weaknesses, or can you simply study train a lot of different positions to improve general understanding and decisions at the board?
Well, also very good question. Sometimes I see problems which I need to solve with such players. They have some, they don't know some problems, or I have interesting materials which will help them to understand better some area. Just in this case, we work on this about this. I remember then a few grandmasters, Nair, Potkin, and Motylev, asked me to arrange a set of lessons for improvement the end game knowledge. So it didn't depend on the personal features. But usually, I starting point for me it's understanding of strong side and weak side of my students, and it helped me to choose correct direction of the work. And also, what is another important thing, that very often the topics we choose depend on what was happened with them or what was happened around them. For example, if they played some important game where some interesting chess problems arise and maybe they didn't solve it well. And just it's a very good point to discuss this problem, to give some additional examples. So there is no precise plan how we worked. Sometimes the circumstances prompt me what it makes sense to do right now. Maybe a trainer should be flexible.
George Bell, long text here. Mr. Dvoretsky, it is an honor to be able to ask you a question, and I personally want to thank you for your influence in chess and the great lessons I have learned from your books. This year, I've been studying chess very systematically and I feel a big improvement, but in the last under-16 national tournament I played some days ago, I got a winning position in almost all 9 games, but in some cases failed to convert it to a point and ended up drawing or losing. I've been there. My question, how can I improve my play in such positions, because it is really frustrating not to be able to score a full point when I have a winning advantage.
Of course. By the way, Grandmaster Carano also could ask the same question recently. He had the same problem. Yeah. Actually, you can find something in this video series about endgame and about, by the way, about prophylaxis as well. And also, I can recommend you to read Yusupov and my book, third book in the series, School of Future Champions. I don't remember exact title in English. And something.
I'm also not sure. I read most in German, so I don't know.
Yeah, but no, it's about endgame. Something about endgame or about technique in chess game, or something technical in chess game, or something like this. Because there are a lot of materials about it. So just basically, by the way, I can give it like general advice for everybody who wants to improve in some area. You should keep this area, this problem, concentrate your attention on it during some time, months, second, 2 months, few months. So it means to analyze your own games from this point of view, to read something instructive from other sources and so on. So concentrate on this topic during some time, and then it's good advice to become better in this area. And try just to find this problem everywhere in games which you see, which you play, which you see, the book, article, contact with friends and so on. So just think about it during some time.
I like one thing Arthur told me, that because I asked him about the same thing, and he said for him, when he has a winning position, it's just a sign to concentrate even harder. Because many of us, me included, like to relax when we have a winning position.
Yes, a very famous maxima, it's most difficult thing is to win winning position. It's very famous sentence. You're right.
Duchoa 137 is a grandmaster. Who's that? Du Quoc Nguyen from Vietnam.
Yeah.
What is the most effective way to read chess books? I think we've had the same question earlier. Playing the moves through in a head, or on a board, or on a computer. It's the exact same question.
Good question, by the way. And various authors approach by different ways. Okay, if you study some specific topic, maybe no sense to analyze the whole game where many problems arise. From other hand, well, you can concentrate on this topic, but simultaneously, if you study good annotations to the whole game, you get some additional information which is also useful for you. Still, if you keep your main problem in the center of your attention, okay, no, you will spend more time, but maybe it's also not bad. I personally prefer to give the whole games. Not always. Of course, if there are some interesting moments on this game. If I don't know really interesting moments in the game, I take just positions. So I believe that both approaches are possible. Yeah, I cannot say that what is certainly best. But it's a good question, really a problem which even trainers should solve. How to give material, how to present my material.
Yeah, but he is once again asking if one should set it up on a board or try in your head. M. Valeron is asking, that Sabrina Vega from Spain. How do you think it's best to study games or typical strategic approaches? Ah, yeah, what you've just answered, sorry. I was confused. I thought we were at the question before, but you've just answered this one, I think, right? By studying whole games or by focusing on 5-6 important moments. So let's move on to Jose Cuenca, whom we met the other day. Dear Mark, when it comes to calculation of concrete lines, what approach do you teach your students? For example, when to cut the tree of possibilities in order not to analyze useless moves. How deep should you analyze, and do you train this?
We already spoke here in our video about calculation, and again, to avoid long explanations, because I explain such things, I should demonstrate chess example, otherwise it's just words. So, takes the fifth book from Seria, Yusupov and my Seria, Development of Creative Thinking, and the very first big chapter in this book, Technique of Searching and Making Decision. So I discuss the problem how to try to find the best move and how to avoid unnecessary calculation and so on. So it's maybe a good starting point for reflection on this topic.
Okay. Kaiso, what is this? What best elo in his life Jan Gustafsson would have reached if he wasn't such lazy? I wasn't such lazy studying English, by the way, just chess. Yeah. I think I had potential for 5 more rating points, maybe. Do you think there's a different approach to training men and women? We've talked about it already.
Yes.
Do you think it's advisable for a 2100 player to work with a chess coach to improve one's play, or is it sufficient to work with books?
Well, if you have a good coach, of course, it would be better. If it's not a good coach, better to work with books. It depends on the coach. Yeah, some players were harmed by bad coaches, so it's dependent.
Yeah, that's also a danger. Colin is asking, if you were coaching Magnus Carlsen, what would you focus on?
Well, if I would coach Magnus Carlsen, first I would study his games. I would discuss with him some problems. Only then I could decide what I should do with him. Otherwise, well, it's not professional. If everybody can say without penetration to the problem, can say what we should do. Of course, it's impossible. I should be in the theme. Yeah, otherwise I cannot give advice.
Yeah. He seems quite good at chess, though, this guy. Never play alone. Why did you choose coaching at quite an early age instead of a playing career?
Various reasons. One of them I already told you right now, but of course it's not single reason. Usually it's always complex of reason. So I got another reason that I got more pleasure when I feel that I can help some good, talented junior comparing with my own playing. When I played myself, I was nervous. I didn't get such a great pleasure from process. But when I teach and I see then I see that kids really became much better, became successful in their life, it's a great pleasure for me.
That might also be a character thing, right? Because for me, I get more pleasure from winning myself than from seeing others. Sad but true. Let's see what else we got. Ooh, still more questions. Oh, this looks long. By Königsmörder. Hang on. Oops, sorry. Here we are. You have 3 questions, but there's only 1 per member. So let's answer the first. My biggest problem in all of my games is the time. In almost every game, I reach a clearly better or winning position, but then lose in time trouble. It often happens that I only have 10 minutes left after 20 moves. I have this problem since I play chess, but I'm not able to solve it. Do you have any idea how he can solve this problem?
Well, I can give simple advice. Take my book for friends and colleagues, first volume, the chapter Big Tournament and Matches. I spoke about it when I speak about my work with Nana Alexandria. Just read about it. Some advices you can find about it.
Kejmovic. Mr. Dvoretsky, I have 2 questions. Once again, how important do you think mental preparation is in chess?
It's extremely important, actually. For me, it's a little bit. I always wondered why we don't use assistance of professional psychologist. because it's clear that if psychologists can help any sportsman, for chess players it's even much more important. I remember that when I spoke with Stefan Kinderman, who finished Get Education like psychologist, I told him, what are you doing? You can should get some additional education, maybe some additional knowledge, and you can work like psychologist, and everybody will need you, because we have no such specialist. So if you will become specialist in this area, you can work with everybody. We have no such specialist, but I believe that it's really very important.
Gaimovic is very happy to hear your answer, because I know that he's a psychologist, so he was happy to.
Yeah, but you know, but I also has experience when some psychologists who don't know chess well or wasn't a decent person enough, they harmed a lot. I had this practice myself with Artur Yusupov in one very important match, and so everything can happen. Psychologists can help a lot, but from the other hand, if they're not professional enough, then can harm. Yeah.
Okay, so this is connected. We'll give him the next one. What psychological skill do you think is most crucial for an elite chess player?
Difficult to say. Concentration, perhaps. Concentration. I remember Alyoshin wrote that, underlined this in his comments. It's really very important.
Chess costly. Okay, I think it's similar question to what we've seen earlier. When do I realize that I have a critical position? That I have reached a critical position?
You know, it's difficult to answer quickly. In many cases, I can recommend you to find something what I already wrote about. It should exist, perhaps on the site Chess Cafe, I'm not sure. In Russian, it's another place. My big article, which called Critical Positions. I analyze this problem. At least when I studied it myself, I understood there is no clear formula how you can guess it. I mentioned, for example, attempt to find such formula by Rosen in his book. Quite interesting attempt, but I am not sure that it will work for chess players. But it was very serious. There are some attempt of Dorfman, but they are not effective at all. It wasn't serious. So I believe that there is no clear formula. I recommend you to find this article. It's not easy. It's not book which I can recommend you accurately. You should try to maybe in Chess Cafe site you can find in an archive. Critical positions. And you will find some reflections about it.
Check it out. He gave a link, but unfortunately I can't access it. Not sure what's going on there. We've already covered Oliver Moldenhauer's question. How can I learn to convert winning positions?
About it, yeah.
The Dark Horde. Do you have any recommendations to improve someone's attention span and concentration at the board? You just mentioned that's very important.
It's extremely important, but I am not a professional psychologist, unfortunately. My son, for example, trained some psychological techniques. There are some courses, and he told that it helped him a lot. Perhaps it's not chess specialists can help, but some other approaches. In past, it was auto training. It was approach. There are some other approaches now. Perhaps some technique was developed. So maybe it makes sense to go to some courses and develop the skill for yourself. I believe that it's important not for chess only. For in the life, it also will be helpful.
So you don't recommend your students to do whatever meditation or any of these techniques?
I can recommend, but I am not specialist. I cannot teach them. So they should get assistance of specialists in this area. It's a very good thing. But
I have to skip some non-premiums, unfortunately. Ryan Meneses. He already asked a question, trying to cheat us. What if there is no chess coaches in his region? What can he do?
Sorry, what's the question?
He wants to know how he can improve without a chess coach if there's no coaches in his region. I think you've mentioned already. Read books, solve exercises.
Yes, what to do.
What is this question? Keep showing up. Dear Mr. Dvoretsky, often when I have a comfortable plus or even a winning position, and my opponent offers a draw, I lose the ability to correctly assess the position. I feel a certain nervousness and uncertainty creep in, making me accept the draw instead of just analyzing the position at the board. How do you deal with this at the board? How can I calm my nerves?
Again, it's a matter not chess technique, it's a matter of psychological technique. So for such questions, it's better to ask advices of professional psychologist. Problem that many psychologists don't understand chess, so they know psychology, but they don't understand specific of chess. It's important to find people who knows both chess and psychology well, but it's not easy.
Looks like Mr. Keimovich will have a lot of new customers. Then I believe we've already made it to the end. The last question by Healthio. And it's a classic question we've faced in many forums already. For a lazy player around 2000 to 2100 FIDE, what would you recommend to focus study? Opening, middle game or end game, and why?
I cannot give advices to lazy player. I give usually only for players who wants to work. I don't know easy way to become better player. I know ways which need to work.
So maybe laziness is the first topic to work on.
Yes, instead of opening endgame. Yes.
Tell me about it.
Right.
I believe we've already answered all the questions. You thought you would only be able to answer 5, and now we've made it through all of them.
But how long we had?
No, we're only in a bit more than 1 hour, so...
You told them 19 minutes.
Yeah, we still have 20 minutes, but I think we have questions.
Hour and 19 minutes. I thought that just 19 minutes.
90.
90. Oh, it's my English.
19.
It's my English.
I'm sorry.
Of course. Sorry. It's my English. I wondered why we continue because I thought that time was exhausted.
I'm sorry. Yeah. No. We had more than 19 minutes.
Yeah. Yes. So in this case, of course, we can discuss. Maybe you missed some question. I don't know.
No, I think we've gotten to all of them. So yeah, in general it seems like the question everybody's always having is how to improve their chess, and yeah, I fully agree that of course it depends on the case itself. You think it's a good idea for pretty much everybody to read some good books and solve exercises, right? You can't go wrong there.
Generally, it's most simple advice and quite good example. Good advice. How to find the good books? It's really a problem. How to understand which books are good. I saw examples when I met some students who believed that some good books are good, which I knew perfectly that they are very weak. For example, in Endgame, I met several former students or some players who told that their favorite Endgame book, it was several years ago, many years ago, book of, I know about other languages, in Russian it was published by Portish and Sharkozy, two authors, 600 of Endgames. Okay. They told that they like this book very much. I know this book, it's a very weak book. It cannot help, really. Because it's a collection of some random endgames. Some of them has no anything with endgame theory. It's just specific studies or something like this, with very short annotation which don't explain anything and so on. But I understand why it's favorite book. Because when they think, okay, how to work on endgame, they see that 5 volumes of Auerbach Endgame book. It's too many examples. Too much. But here it's not a big book. It's a small book. They look okay, but I will study this small book and I will know Endgame. And so they started to study it, and they believe that they really improve the Endgame. Actually, no, of course, they improve a little bit because it's always useful to study some Endgame positions. But of course, it's not effective way. So you should choose the really best books. Otherwise, you will spend time.
Oops. My phone always rings during live shows. No one ever calls me when I'm not on the air. Oliver Moldenhauer has one more question, which we've kind of tackled, but he's asking, sorry I have missed the answer to my question. Can you tell me, please, if it is worth to train with computer and how to do it?
You know, not easy to answer because, of course, we cannot ignore computer and we should use computer's results. From other hand, we should try to solve many problems ourselves. So how to combine it? Well, how I can explain? It's always in any concrete situation I should find a solution. It's the same like when I work with my student. I remember maybe as I have a few times, I will tell you one story. Somewhere in the middle of 90s, I visited USA several times, and I had 2 serious sessions with Patrick Wolf, very nice guy. Very talented player, and the session was successful. After the session, he twice won American championship. Then he saw that it don't bring anything in America and switched to business to another area, unfortunately. But he's very nice and very talented guy. And I remember that one day he asked me to analyze together with him some sharp line in Queen's Gambit, Wiener variation, something like this. I didn't know theory, but okay, to analyze it wasn't so important. We started to analyze, and I saw that when some sharp situation arises, he always tried to turn on computers. Program wasn't strong, but still it could at this time, but still it could help. So and try to see what computer says. Yeah. Okay. Then next day I gave him a test, some positional test, which I gave in my school, and so on. His result was very bad. Maybe I remember 7 points from 20. Yeah, so for grandmaster, I gave it for very young student. For example, Jan Zviagintsev, he was, I don't remember, 13 or 14 years old. He had 12.5 point. Yeah. Patrick was, of course, disappointed very much. But I told him, Patrick, what could you expect? Okay, it's positional test, but still you need to find moves, calculate some lines. You cannot deal even with positional problems without it. But I see how you work. You always, instead of training your tactical skill, you try to see what computer will say about it, so you don't get this training. When in those times he was friend of Anand, and he worked with Anand several times, like his second training session they had together. I told, when you work with Anand works like computer instead of replace computer. So you have no practice to solve problems yourself. So how you can expect good result without it? It's absolutely natural.
No, of course, it's a big problem for many players of my generation that we get hypnotized by computer because it makes you, very lazy, or makes it much harder to switch on your brain when you know you have the answer there in front of you all the time.
Yes.
And I'm certainly guilty of it. Of course, it's a big tool for me for opening work, but it is also a big drawback that it's so much harder to think well.
Yes.
The old days you would pick up a book and you were forced to think, but now the answer is always there. So I believe that's it for today. Thank you so much, Mark, for not only answering all the questions, also...
I will repeat that for me it was a pleasure to see a smart question. Very often, sometimes people ask some stupid question which no sense to answer. But here it was a lot of interesting, deep question, which if we would have more time, it would be interesting to have even some kind of lectures on those topics and so on. There are some discussions and so on. No, okay, we have restricted time, but still I hope that maybe some ideas I told. But of course I understand that in many cases I told that it's possible to do by this way or another way, and didn't give a accurate answer. But it's not because I don't know and don't want to say just because such answer doesn't exist.
No shortcuts.
Possible. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So check out the video series that Mark did here on Chess24 on endgame strategy and on calculation. I've certainly learned a lot from them. They're going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks if you're watching this live, else they might already be out. Thanks a lot for visiting us here in Hamburg.
Okay, thank you. It was a pleasure to try myself in such work. I didn't do it usually. I never did it with internet, with video and so on.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. For me, it's a new experience also.
I hope you guys will like it. Check it out. The great Mark Dvoretsky, everybody. That's it for today.
Wait.